This podcast is on twig identification, so please write that as your heading in your notebook. Before we start identifying twigs, because that's all we have in the winter to identify trees with, we need to talk about some of the characteristics that you can find on these winter trees. The diagram you have in front of you is something that eventually you're going to put into your notebook, but you don't have to draw it exactly as it is. Obviously, this is an artist's sketch, and we just need some of the details that are in it. So I'm going to kind of draw a sketch of my own on the side here, while you do yours as well, and kind of point out for you what it is that you need to pay attention to. Alright, so if this is my twig on the side, and this is maybe what you want to draw, okay, you do want to have a terminal or end bud, okay, and that's going to be what's at the very tip top. Terminal means the end of it. So the very tip top of your twig is going to be that terminal or end bud, so please draw that and label it. The other thing that I want you to have on your twig drawing is leaf scars, because those are going to help us to identify what types of twigs they are based on the shape of the leaf scars. So you can put some leaf scars on the side, just like little round nubbins. What they actually are is where the leaf was attached last spring and summer and then fell off, and so it's a little scar that's left behind, and that's where the new bud is going to form. We also have, as time goes on, some terminal bud scars that are where the tree grew from the last season. So what you'll see that as is like a little scar across, a little division even across the bottom of the twig, kind of a horizontal line that's going to appear, and that's where the new growth was. So in this case, in our drawing, all of this here on the side, from the terminal bud to the terminal bud scale scar, all of that is new growth from last season. Okay, a couple more things you're going to want on yours. You do want side or lateral buds. So besides having buds on the end of the twig, you can also have buds that stick out the side. So I'm going to draw a couple of those, and then of course label them. And then finally, some twigs, not all, have these little dots on them called lenticles. Okay, so we're going to do a bunch of little dots on our twig. Okay? And again, label those. So those are the ones I need you to know. Don't worry about the bud scales. We're not going to look into those a whole lot. And the bundle scars, same thing. We're not going to use those a whole lot in our identification. Alright, moving on. Other things that we need to know for identification are the types of leaf scars and the bud arrangements. So we're going to go over these leaf scars first. Again, you're going to want to not only list out the 4 different types of leaf scars, but also draw yourself a diagram of the shape. So these are pretty self-explanatory. There's 4 different types of leaf scars: heart, triangular, encircled, and round. I just kind of want to point out the differences. Heart are heart-shaped, as you can see here. Okay, it's this kind of, maybe it'll work better if I color it in with a smaller pen here. It's this kind of heart-shaped little flat area below the bud. Okay, that's where the leaf was attached last season, as I said, and now the new bud is emerging on top of that. Triangular is what it sounds like. It's more of a triangle or a V shape below the new bud. Encircled, completely or nearly completely, goes around the new bud. And then round is below the new bud again, but it's almost round. Okay, it might not be a perfect circle, but it's definitely not a heart and it's not triangular. So again, make sure you draw yourself some diagrams for that. Now the lateral bud arrangements should sound familiar to you because we talked about these when we talked about leaf arrangements. Obviously buds turn into leaves, so bud arrangements are going to be the same as our leaf arrangements. We've got opposite, alternate, and whorled. Remember, opposite are directly across from each other. Okay, so these two leaves basically sit parallel to each other. Alternate are staggered, so these two leaves are like steps up the branch. And whorled all attach at one single point right here in the middle. And they go around the entire stem. All right, so in the activity you're going to do with this winter tree identification is you are going to use a key to help identify different twigs from various trees. And again, these twigs do not have leaves on them because we're assuming it's winter time. And instead we're going to have to look at things like lenticels, terminal bud, bud scars, things like that. In order to do this activity, you're going to use an index card. That's what this big square is. Okay, this whole thing right here is one index card. And you can split it in half once you trace it so that each index card is going to have 2 twigs in it. Okay, 2 drawings. At the top for the label, so here and here for each of your 2 drawings, I want the letter of the twig that you're drawing. Okay, you're going to find out the name of it eventually, but you're going to start by making sure that you write the letter of the one you're working on. In the box for that particular twig, you're going to draw it. And as it says here, I want you to add some notes to your drawing. For example, pointing out things like a terminal bud or a leaf scar or lenticels. Down at the bottom, we have the classification characteristics. That's going to be the information that you get directly off of your key. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a moment here. So again, you're going to do 2 twigs in each index card box. Make sure they have a label, a drawing with notes, and classification characteristics underneath. So here's a sample of what this might look like when you're done. So again, this is half of an index card. So this is just 1/2 here. Right? What we've done here is drawn, for pretend, what this twig might look like. Notice the 2 labels I put on there, buds and a leaf scar. If it has more things than 2, then add more labels than 2. The bur oak is the final name that you assign to this particular twig, but don't forget I also want a letter. So maybe you had first A, and then when you were all done identifying it, you labeled it as a bur oak. Okay, so the label includes the letter and the name. All right, now how do you identify it? On your dichotomous key, which is a piece of paper that you're going to use, you're going to start at sample 1, which I believe always says are the buds alternate or opposite. In this case, we're going to choose off of our paper 1A, option 1A, which says buds alternate. Okay, that option on our paper is going to tell us to go to question 4. Question 4 says, is the twig thornless or does it have thorns? Well, in this case, our twig is thornless, so we're choosing option 4B. From there, it'll tell us to go to number 6. It says, does the leaf scar encircle the bud or not? In this case, we take option 6B, which says the leaf scar does not encircle the bud. You keep going through your dichotomous key until you get to an actual name of your tree species. And that name, again, goes up here at the top with your letter. So what I mean by classification characteristics is a recording from your actual paper of what steps you took to get to that name. And don't forget the numbers and letters that go with the descriptions for each step. Okay, keep it nice and organized. If you want to paraphrase it a little bit so that you don't have to write as much for each of these characteristics, you can certainly do that, but it should make sense. I should be able to understand which step you were on based on your paraphrasing. There are, I believe, 13 twigs at all, so you're going to need 7 total index card boxes. Again, each of them split in half, so 2 twigs can go in each box. That's it. Now you're ready to work on the activity. You can always come back to this vodcast if you have any questions about what you're seeing for identification.